let's do a check-in, personal or professional?
I'll start. I'll share professional best this week. I just received a donorship project funding for a class at a pet run. So I'm really excited to get those in that concert.
I'll go. Had a sub for the last 2 days, and it's hard to find someone who does a good job. And I'm gonna be out next week, and I asked her if she would be willing to come back, and she said that she really enjoyed our kids in our school, and she'd be more than happy to come back whenever we need her. So it was very good to hear about our students.
I'll build on that, and professional best, John and Eric kept things running smoothly for us in the office the last 2 days. That's professional best.
I'm gonna go personal best. My wife got a streak last weekend of wanting to accomplish something, so we together painted our laundry room, which 18 years ago we built this house, and it's the last room yet to be painted. So we now have a fully painted house.
Now you're gonna just start all over again.
And I've had a lot of great learning here, and I'm excited to share it with all of you guys when we get back.
And I was going to add that too, as a professional best, just being here and being able to reflect and meet colleagues from around the country, and kind of like a spring rejuvenation.
Okay, rock status update, best practices on track.
Student data analysis on track.
And personalized coaching, analyzing student work and data is off track. And I have added that to the issues list.
So team updates. And just maybe choose one thing to update today or to share. Okay, so during my post-conferences with teachers, I've seen a lot of evidence of increased specific self-reflection, so it's been really great to see that.
So for the student data rock, we had Megan Highfield come in and present to the staff for de-escalation strategies on Monday, and we had a lot of good feedback about that. And Jan and I followed up with a coaching conversation with our 6th grade team to put some concrete strategies in place for them. So looking forward to seeing the impact of that.
I was able to meet with our PE teacher who wanted to gain a better understanding of collaboration in the classroom in order to be able to get some new ideas for her PE class. And so we set up a collegial visit, and so that went really well.
Within one of my 2 coaching conversations, I was able to discuss student work samples that are upcoming within a 4th grade classroom. The teacher is putting together, the students are creating famous Hoosier projects. And so we kind of had some conversation about what the student work is going to look like for that, and maybe what some rubrics we might need to create to do some assessing of that work.
I was able to go into another special area class with our music teacher, and one of the things we've been working at is how engagement looks in his room and how the students are doing music, and it was really just neat to see how that impacts their performance both individually and then with partners, and then he had them try an activity as a full class, and it was really neat how you can see that translate from each step up to the group.
I had a coaching conversation this week with a 2nd grade teacher after I observed her writing lesson. Highlight was just how she was incorporating our 2nd step curriculum into her writing block. She spoke about how she sees a correlation between her students who are having a lot of reading success and a lot of writing success. And we both left there with like a clear next step plan. She plans to re-implement the yes ma'am strategy and video.
Okay, moving on to our scorecard. For best practices, 27 out of 36 teachers with their video upload, they really were presenting engagement strategies, so that was great to see. So we're on track.
And with our student data rock, we are still waiting on the goal sheets, but airways testing is finishing up with makeups next week, so we'll have that data, as well as the growth data, the number of the kids who made their goals. The referral data, actually the numbers are down a little bit this week. It's gonna still take a little while to see the impact of the professional development that we were doing, but numbers are looking better.
Not to sabotage, but you don't know
That's true, yeah, I have put those numbers in.
All right, and the personalized coaching, advanced feedback scorecard. If you take a look at the, all of our teachers have submitted an advanced feedback video. And then if you take a look at the personalized coaching scorecard, our goal is to have 50% of our coaching conversations to be centered around student work and data, and it's obviously off track.
And we scored this individually, remember, looking at the coaching for change rubric, how did we see Karen leveraging student work?
So,
Maybe we should
Yeah,
prioritize
let's-
before we jump.
okay.
Yeah, Emily, do you wanna prioritize?
Sure. So we just have 3 items on the issue list. I'm gonna put leveraging student work through coaching as number 1, with those numbers being off, that's our priority for this week. We'll put referral data, de-escalation strategies as 2, we do wanna discuss some follow-up, so the professional development just doesn't stay in the meeting. And then just working out some details for the March 2nd professional development EP3.
All right, so last week, we were able to watch a video of me coaching one of our 5th grade teachers, and then analyzing it and using the Coaching for Change rubric, scoring the video on how I leverage student work in the coaching conversation with Kristen. So if you could all take out your notes, I know last week we didn't have the opportunity to go through those and to reflect on those.
So we'll start with the first indicator.
Yeah, so Emily and I had the facilitation of a reflective and growth-oriented mindset. Some things that we noticed Karen doing in her coaching of the teacher was definitely leveraging. She said things like, "Talk to me about this part of the lesson." She was referencing evidence. Then she also went to the student work. She had the teacher separate the student work into 3 categories. So she was, I saw her definitely doing some of those areas in our above proficient category.
Thank you.
Specifically, I noticed some of the questions that Karen was asking, so, she said, what are your next steps? And the teacher was talking about, based on the rubric, students aren't finding useful or not useful evidence. And so then Karen was probing, well, what would be useful or not useful? How are you going to scaffold that? Really got the teacher to plan some concrete steps for the next lesson, and kept developing that until there was a clear understanding of what those next steps were, both for the teacher and for Karen. So looking at those bullet points, that's also in the above proficient area, and really having the work in front of the teacher made a difference.
Anything else for that indicator? Okay, expertise and credibility.
Karen and I had that one. It was interesting talking to Karen about herself. But
So many good things.
in that indicator, what I noticed was just, and Karen and I talked about it, was when they sat down to go through the work before that happened, Karen asked her why there was a need for this, and they had talked about in our step meetings as a grade level, we had seen a need to change the rubric for the writing to engage the yes man strategy a little better. And so she was able to have the teacher explain the why and the fact that she was able to see a need to have that organizer for the students. And then with the indicator about the best practices, Karen was very intentional on explaining to Kristen about modeling what the students are gonna be doing and how they're gonna be doing it and what that should look like. So, I thought it was very good.
When Kristen and I sorted the student work into 3 areas of proficiency, we were able to talk about, and I was able to ask those questions about, why do you suppose they landed in the proficiency level that they landed in? And, what did we know notice. And it really enabled her to reflect a lot. So I thought that was very powerful, as well as, we discussed how we were going to move, what these students needed to move to the next proficiency level. And then, coming back into a room, actually the next day for a short observation, working on the same strategy to see how those students.
Okay, coaching behaviors. So Karen has a bobblehead. Notice she did a lot of nodding, which was great. Yeah.
Now Dennis
So
wouldn't
what-
be impressed, but.
Yeah, while the teacher was reflecting, she had a lot of great body language.
I was also gonna add to that, Kristen also as well, her body language during your whole conversation was very positive, she wasn't closed off. And I felt her comfortability was evidence that she felt comfortable enough, her body language was the evidence that she felt comfortable enough sharing student work samples with you in your meeting. And then you also used the phrase, talk to me about that a lot, to get her to reflect on her responses. So not allowing her to stop at like, well, I did this. You said like, talk to me about that. How did you do that a lot?
Yeah, and you had really good airtime. And the nodding. So the teacher did probably 80% of the talking. Yeah, so that was great. Okay, so Karen's leverage and analysis of student work, what do you think, made this a pretty successful coaching conversation? Okay, yeah, I think we would all agree. So we need to replicate this during our coaching. So what do you think barriers would be right now?
I think a big barrier I see in my coaching conversations, which is something that Lisa kind of spoke about at the very beginning, is teachers saying, well, my kids did well, but they don't really have the evidence to show that the kids did well or didn't do well. And then for me specifically, with those teachers that I'm working with, is not having like physical student work to analyze with them, especially like during their intervention lessons. So I'm not able to analyze like physical student work a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think, then also kind of piggybacking off of what Brittany said would be teachers taking the time to analyze then, once they do have the student work, taking the time to analyze what that student work is showing them, so they can specifically target, areas that the students did master.
That's a good point, because they're doing that in PLC every week with Karen, but are they doing it in all areas of their teaching?
Kind of piggyback from what we saw earlier today in one of our earlier sessions. Sometimes with some of the people that I'm with, if I'm asking them to bring work samples or share a video, I think there's a feeling that it is evaluative, and that's not our role. So I think just overcoming that anxiety is something that we need to get better at. So it can be a hindrance.
So maybe it would be helpful to just brainstorm some of the things we saw from Karen's model, as well as maybe some entry points to get past the barriers you guys are seeing.
Should we put it on chart paper?
Yep.
Maybe? Okay.
I got it.
Eric, you got it?
That's me.
I got it. Eric's our recorder.
I have courteous handwriting. Alright, so what's our first?
Let's start with entry points, because, I mean, if we're not getting teachers to bring the student work to conversations, or if there is no student work, like Brittany was saying, you've gotta have an entry point.
Just entry points?
Yeah.
Hit me.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, just like walk through observation, or walk through form.
Maybe, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Maybe, does the assessment align with the objective?
I was just thinking about what Brittany was saying about if there is no student work in the actual lesson, but, you know, asking what happened after I left, or how's the progress monitoring going with the intervention, so.
So progress monitoring.
Yeah. What happened, what did the students do after I left the room? What evidence do you have, maybe?
You can add to the progress monitoring, like, what is the end goal for the students? What are we wanting them to do? What do they have to do to be successful?
Yeah, that reminds me of the book that Karen shared with us about student-centered coaching and how if we focus more on the actual student work, it takes the pressure off the teacher, so.
Holding the
It's
students
more
accountable,
student-centered,
student
yeah.
accountability, rather than what the teacher.
Student-centered student accountability.
Going backwards, eventually you're gonna get to what the teacher's doing.
And then also, Eric, maybe planning, if you're planning or co-teaching a lesson with the teacher.
Okay, I think we have quite a few.
Ready for new ones?
Underline, work intensively.
Do you want underlined or you want it boxed?
Well,
You know what, you
underline
can
in a
choose.
different color.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, number two.
Okay,
What else?
what else should we think about?
Like, what questions can you ask the teacher to get to the student work?
Okay,
Yeah, what questions to ask?
questions to get to, I'm gonna put SW for student work.
So like, what went well? And how do you know?
Yeah, don't stop there.
Yeah. Or how.
I think sometimes too, just like having like the teacher tell you what the focus of the lesson was, like knowing what the objective was, where they were trying to go. So like, what was the focus of your lesson? Like, what were your objectives?
And did they master it?
Yeah.
You know, what percentage,
What
maybe you don't go to the percentage right away, but, you know, eventually get to that.
You're gonna have to repeat that one. I got a thought on my mind. I need-
What was the percentage?
What was the mastery?
What was mastering? Alright,
We can come back to that one if we need it.
Karen, what color do you want?
Blue again.
Gotcha. Ready for next one?
Okay, yes, let's do another one.
What about protocols?
Protocols?
Well, I think we definitely saw Karen do a protocol with the sorting into, you know, 3 levels of mastery. And that could be something that the teachers could either do with you as a coach or beforehand. depending on
Sorting?
Yeah,
Sorting
sorting
student
student work,
work.
yeah.
Eric,
After, I know in your video with Kristen, after she had sorted the work though, the two of you had chosen like student work from like this group and this group and were comparing, like seeing how the students were comparing. So comparing the student
Analysis or
samples.
compare?
Compare student samples.
you had talked earlier about meeting with the teacher to create a rubric, like so being able to finalize the expectations,
Of mastery.
yeah, of where they're going, of mastery there.
And then there was that 3-phase rubric that was shared during our last quarterly meeting.
Any others?
I think we're good.
See what I'm doing
Okay.
here? Colors.
Okay, what are student work samples? What do they look like?
Because it could be student work or student data, so we don't have to limit it to
So-
something physical.
So this one's gonna be, what are student work samples?
Yes.
So for 5th grade, we've been using a lot of the Canvas data to score their writing or their explanations to an explained problem. So it could, just a 0, 1, 2 score. So their Canvas. We call it Canvas data, but it could be,
Canvas data,
Yeah.
you can see student.
yeah.
I know a lot of our teachers in the building use Seesaw, the Seesaw app, to do a lot of work on, so I feel like Seesaw samples also. It's not necessarily physical, but that is something you can analyze like that.
How about,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Renaissance Airways.
Could also just be a weekly quiz or assessment, even an exit ticket.
Exit ticket.
Exit ticket.
Writing samples. Anything else for now?
No, I just think the interesting part of that's gonna be when you have a teacher that maybe didn't have any student work in the lesson. I mean, that may be the more important conversation to have if there's.
Well, and then you can go with the data that
Right.
she was using or he was using prior to when you planned the lesson, what was the data that was available that you can analyze?
Okay. Any more
Um,
topics?
maybe more for us three, but like, what are our, and Karen, what are the next steps? Like, so when Karen meets with our fifth grade team again, like, what is she gonna be doing with that teacher specifically, but other teachers as well? So,
This one's next steps, right?
yeah, just the last steps, next steps.
How about co-teaching with the teacher?
And co-planning before the lesson.
Co-plan.
That's really what Karen was doing in the video.
Hyphenated, not hyphenated, co-teaching, co-plan.
Whatever you want.
That's not my bag, that's not my bag.
Maybe comparing the results from the lesson, I wanna say, the lesson prior to the next observation. Comparing results from the last observation to, or the last lesson observed to the one that you're going to observe next week or the next day.
And I know, like, advanced feedback's a big thing
Yes,
in our
that's what I was
district,
thinking.
input, insight, and like, just utilizing that more as like a next step option for the teachers and for the coach.
Anything else?
I just, maybe just make sure that you schedule a specific date, like when are you going to be teaching this next lesson? When can we meet to talk about it?
Quality communication schedule.
Schedule.
I just can't, I
You
came up with
just
that
summarize
myself.
that real color.
My job done?
So does anybody wanna type this up so we have it in our drive? To serve as a reference or?
Yeah, I can do
Alright, John, I'll add it here. To-do list.
All right, so our time is up. We only got to one issue, but that's okay. I thought we had a lot of great ideas to develop and great next steps, so we will go to our 5-star rating. Remember, what are you as a member going to do differently from this meeting?
I'll start, although we didn't get to everything on our issues list, I'm going to give our meeting a 4 today, just because I feel like this is such a big topic in our building and trying to utilize student work more. Using the protocols that we just created together, I feel like I can do a better job now, moving forward, incorporating more student work into my coaching conversation, so I'm gonna go with a 4.
I'm actually gonna go with the 3, and, for one reason is we didn't get through all of our issues today, and it'd be nice to get through more than just one. Knowing that analyzing student data and student work is such a key component of a coaching conversation, allowing a teacher to really reflect on what they are doing in the classroom and how they're teaching in order to support students. What I'm going to do differently is to work with each of you guys more, so when you have another coaching conversation coming up, or you're going to be maybe doing a walkthrough observation, we can talk about how to leverage some student work into your coaching conversations.
I'll go with 3 as well. Part of it's just due to the fact that we're typically pretty good at staying, and getting through our thing. We didn't get to everything this time. But for me, being able to be more, cognizant about having people bring their samples or bring even just a couple that they thought was maybe an exemplar, or maybe somebody who wasn't there, and just comparing what did those look like, and then maybe even just being more cognizant of having people share just something quick that is on not Canvas, but in the advance, the video, which is a struggle that I have.
I'm gonna go, something that I'm gonna be able to do differently going forward would be, I've got a better idea from us having analyzed Karen's coaching for change, her conversation, her coaching conversation recently about questions and just what leveraging that student work looks like and sounds like. So I'm gonna be able to use some of those strategies in my next coaching conversation, and then having some entry point and next steps is gonna be beneficial to me going forward. So I'm gonna go forward.
I was kind of thinking, during post-conferences, we could really look at coaching, instead of evaluative. Yeah, so I'm gonna go